2 weeks ago, I had an offer accepted on a property. And this morning, my wife and I took the difficult decision to withdraw that offer. Now, I'm not even sure I should really be making this video. I don't feel overly comfortable about sharing this, especially as there are other people involved in the process. But I think there is value there for you guys, especially anyone that's considering buying in 2024 or over in the next year or two. So I want to share my experience to prepare you guys for what is in store, and also just talk about what happens if you do change your mind, as buying a house is a very stressful and emotional process. And the more that you're aware of the process itself, the better prepared, hopefully, you can be. So we had an offer accepted about 2 weeks ago. And ever since, we've been popping back every few days or so, just doing our kind of due diligence on the area. So try and visit at different times, and just to make sure there's no issues. And unfortunately, yesterday we discovered a noise issue, which for us became a deal breaker. This isn't anything that the vendor was trying to hide. You know, the vendor was great actually. And just on that note, if you're selling your property, and there's going to be mixed opinions on this, but if you're selling your property and you feel confident about showing people your house, as a buyer, I would much rather view a house with the vendor doing the showing, as they know their house and the local area, and they can answer the questions so much better than your average estate agent. So the vendor showed us around a couple of weeks ago, did a great job, was really helpful, was really honest with us, and really put us at ease, to be honest. And this is why it kind of makes pulling out really hard, is that you know there are other people in the chain and there is that knock-on effect. So sometimes people will stay in a chain or a transaction out of guilt, and unfortunately you do have to try and treat it like a business transaction. So as much as I'm feeling guilty at this moment about the impact that our decision will have on other people in the chain, we're also confident we are making the right decision. So you have to do it based on that. So that's just the first point. Be prepared for that emotion. Don't let emotion keep you in a chain or buying or selling a property if something doesn't quite add up for you, because if there's doubt now, that doubt is going to grow and grow and potentially be a big issue when you do actually get that property. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what actually happens when you pull out. Are there any penalties? Well, if you're in England, no, there's no real penalties if you decide to withdraw from buying a property. Now, it's not to say you won't be faced with any fees, depending on what contract you've got with different people. So depending on your contract you've got with your solicitor, they may charge you a fee, or maybe your solicitor's already done some search packs, you're going to lose that money as well. If you've already done a mortgage application, you've paid a broker, you're probably not going to get back that broker fee either. There shouldn't be any fees with an estate agent. So it all depends whether any work has been done by anyone and what your contract is with that person as to whether there are any fees. So hopefully we won't face too many fees, but if my solicitor has already done the searches, then that's fair enough. That is part of the process, and I'll swallow that and I'll take the hit. And I might even offer the searches to the vendor and say, look, you can use them for someone else who wants to buy your house. Well, I'm still waiting for my solicitor to confirm whether they've done the searches or not. So that's the second thing. There aren't really any penalties all the way up until exchange date. Even after exchange, you can still pull out, but there will be financial penalties. So, but really, if you're going to pull out before exchange. Don't do it after exchange. And just briefly, that mark on my head, as you might be able to see there, I've just got back from riding my bike, so it's just a helmet. It's just a helmet impression. Don't worry, I'm absolutely fine. So the next thing is to always do your due diligence. Don't rely on a solicitor to completely protect you. I would recommend always visiting the property multiple times. If you want to do 2 viewings, absolutely go and do 2 viewings. I only did 1 viewing this time, which is actually quite rare for us, but they had a virtual tour as well. So all of the questions we had, we could answer by going back to the virtual tour. We only did 1 viewing, but it's like an hour long, so we got a really good feel and thorough understanding of the property. But we kept going back to the property, like I said, to check for any issues. So when you're buying a property, always do that. Do the due diligence. Don't be afraid to go back past the property. Don't worry if the person sees you. If there is someone looking to sell their property and they see you coming back past again, I'm sure they're going to be absolutely fine with seeing you. They're probably going to be excited that you're excited to buy their property, because for the past 2 weeks, we've been excited. In your mind, you're basically moved in already and you're starting to plan things. But unfortunately, we've had to take this decision to pull out. So don't be afraid to go back multiple times, either officially as a viewing, as a second viewing, or just go back in your own time, even walk around the area, maybe sit there, have a bit of a picnic nearby. Obviously, it depends where you are. If you're in an estate somewhere, it might not be as convenient, whereas the place we were buying was in the country, so we could go for a nice walk around the country. So that is something that you need to keep in mind with all of this. It's going to be very emotional. There's no penalties if you do pull out. And number 3, make sure you do your due diligence. Go back multiple times to make sure the area and the house are exactly what you want them to be, because you don't want to discover 24 hours after you move in that there's a big problem and you're going to have to resell because you're going to lose an awful lot of money. Now, I have got some anecdotal experience around house prices at the moment I'm going to share with you shortly. But just the final point I want to make before I get to that is just be honest at all stages. So when we contacted the estate agent and the solicitor this morning, we said to them, we gave them the honest answer exactly as to what had happened and why we'd taken the decision to pull out. We were very polite. We, of course, sent our apologies. Not that means a huge amount, but it certainly isn't a personal thing. And it's it's hard for both people, not just the people pulling out, but the people who lose their buyer. As a buyer, you do start to get emotionally invested in a property. So, but always be honest and just tell them exactly why you've made the decision you're going to make, and apologize. There is certainly no harm in apologizing, because people are going to be hurt up and down the chain. So finally, coming back to price, which is the main reason people watch this video. If you go by some of the recent house price indices, it seems like house prices haven't fallen much at all from their peak in August 2022. And I think in the Halifax report last week, they are less than £3,000 away in terms of average national house price from the peak in 2022, which I just found completely unbelievable, because there is no way property prices at the moment are anywhere near the peak they were in 2022. So to share my own experience, the property that we were looking at, I'm not going to tell you where it is or an address or postcode or anything like that, as that isn't fair on the vendor. In terms of region, I can tell you it's in the East Midlands. So the East Midlands is quite big. That can be quite a swathe, but it's in the countryside. It's a big detached property, and January 2023 they listed. So a year ago they listed at 650, and then I think around about August, September last year they changed agent and reduced their price to 600, and then I think shortly after that, they reduced their price to 575. And then when we viewed the property, we worked out the price that we were happy with. Remember, this isn't a reflection of the value of the property. This is the value to us that would work. So there were some changes we wanted to make. So we made an offer based on what we would be able to afford and still be able to have the money we want to make the changes we want to make. And that's how you need to assess a property. We could have potentially gone a bit higher on our bid, but if we did, we couldn't have made the changes that we were intending to make, and all of a sudden the whole process isn't exciting and you're putting yourself in a bit more of a financial difficulty. So we made our offer at 525, and the estate agent, to be fair, did a good job. She went to the vendor, the vendor turned it down and come back and said they offered to meet us in the middle. So we offered 525, they were on at 575 and offered to meet in the middle, which usually, it's a fair offer. But obviously, as you guys have known from watching this channel over the past year, I'm fully aware of where I believe the housing market is going. I don't want to overpay, and plus we needed that additional money. So we said, no, we are going to hold our bid at 525. And we had a viewing lined up that weekend at a different property. So I said to them, I will leave that bid on the table until Friday, and then we're going to commence viewing another property on Saturday. And then we left it at that. And then that evening, about 7 o'clock, I got a surprise call from the estate agent who said that the vendor had looked at the properties that they were considering and were able to make it work and were willing to accept our offer. So we were very, very happy. We secured a property at what I felt was a good price, but also protected us a bit if this market does continue down over the next year or two. But all of that is irrelevant now, obviously, because we're not going to be buying that property. But I wanted to share my experience, because seeing that property come down from being listed at 650 to agreeing a price at 525, that's a 20% difference, versus these house price indices that are telling us that we're only £3,000 away from peak prices. This is why it's so important to monitor your local area. And I'm going to dive into that a lot more in next week's video. But for now, if you're thinking about buying a property in 2024 or in 2025 or beyond, and you want to do some of your own due diligence checks, some advanced checks that you can do absolutely for free right now, I'm going to pop up a video now which shows you some of these checks that you guys can do, and I'll see you guys over there.